Welcome back, gamers. Today I'm going to finally review Warhammer End Times Vermintide. Now, if you haven't been following the channel for a few weeks, I've been playing this game since, so I'm going to get right to it. The game itself is a 4-person co-op first-person melee game with some range combat included. The gameplay itself is pretty much like Left 4 Dead 2. In fact, it is said to be the predecessor of Left 4 Dead. The objective of the game is quite simple to understand. You and a group of other players will have to make it to the end of the map and reach the objective using the 5 characters in the game. Each of the characters in the game are unique in their own aspect, and also their voices and their banthers. They are able to use different assortments of weapons and range weapons, some of which requires ammo, some of which requires you to cool down the weapon before using, or else it'll blow up and kill you, such as the Bright Wizard and the Dwarf's Gun. Now, the classes in the game are the Witch Hunter with his dual pistols and rapier, and also single-handed axes are some of the few weapons you can use. You have the Waywatcher, which is the elf who is able to use dual-wielding daggers and also swords with piercing damage, along with different types of bows. You have the Dwarf and the Empire, who are very similar to each other because they can use dual-handed weapons, the Warhammer, the axes, and also shields, so kind of like a tanky class. And finally, you have the only class that is able to use spells and magic staves and flaming sword is the Bright Wizard, whose element surrounds fire. Now, the game itself is in the Warhammer universe. If you don't know a lick about the Warhammer world, you can actually check it out on the wiki and read more about the End Times. The End Times is the beginning of the end, and basically the end of the world of Warhammer. The enemies you'll be facing in this game specifically will be the Skavens, which are the Ratmans. One of the things I will definitely compliment about the game is the graphics of the game. The graphics looks gorgeous. The amount of details that it's put into each of the map brings out the immersion in the map, and also the other thing is that each of the characters are done really well, including the enemies. Even though the enemies are rat, if you pay close attention to them, you can see the amount of details they put into the rats. Some of them will have different weapons, some of them will cry different, and some of them will also charge you in different ways and do different animations if you pay attention to them. Some of them will be scared, push themselves against the wall, so there's a lot of little details that you'll notice in this game that brings the game to life. Another thing I want to compliment about the game is the banters between the characters. One of the things you'll hear throughout the game, especially when you're doing something strange, such as when you're jumping a lot, you'll hear another character call that out, or if you're killing enemies, you'll hear the banters between them. The elevator scenes, you'll hear banters between the characters, which also adds to that attention to details in the game. One other thing you'll notice is that this game is very CPU intensive, so hopefully they'll optimize the game a lot better. It does have different options in the game, but it needs to be optimized a little better. Overall, I'm expecting them to fix this later on as the game goes on and patches comes out. Of course, one of the other downside of the game I noticed is that the hitboxes aren't on point in this game. If you swing around, you'll notice it too. You can definitely hit enemies in the head and on the arm and on the body, etc. To do more damage, you want to hit them on the head. But however, sometimes the hitboxes feels a little bit wonky, so when you're swinging around, you won't actually hit the way you want it to hit. So it could definitely do a lot better on that. Hopefully we'll see a better hitbox system in the future, but for now, you have to get used to it. But once you get used to it, it settles in on you and you'll be okay. As long as you're always swinging your weapon around, you'll never know, because that's how most players are playing this game. They're just constantly swinging their weapons all over the place, hoping to hit that hitbox whenever they can. But overall, the range system themselves is on point for this game, so I didn't have much to complain about the range system, since whenever I point my cursor on something or I focus my fire on something, I always hit the mark when I needed to. Now, there are 13 levels in the game, as I said before, and the maps can range from difficulty scalings depending on the map. Some of the maps take place in the town of Uberstrike, some of them are outside of it, some of them requires you to defend a certain thing against a Skaven, sometimes it requires you to get certain items back to a wagon or get some items back to a ship and can be quite fast. Some of them just requires you to destroy objectives, but overall all the maps are really fun and different. The one thing I would definitely compliment about the maps is that each of the maps is unique to themselves. Most of the maps takes place in Uberstrike. Those maps are really big and expansive also, but I definitely like the maps that takes place out of it, like the swamps and the ramparts and also the underbelly, which takes place underground. The garden is also one of my other favorite ones, where it's a huge expansive place with a lot of different areas you can explore and check out. Even though the maps follow the same path, once you know the path, you'll go through that path, but they are big and they offer a lot of exploration. Now during the gameplay, you'll be facing a variety of different obstacles that will be in your way, one of which is ambushes from rats that ambush and crawl out of places. It's really nice to see where they crawl out from: the walls, the gutters, the sewers, the side, the trees. I mean, they come out from all different directions if you look, which is really nice. And the other thing is that you'll face hordes. When the horn blows, there's a horde coming, you'll have to fight the horde off. And the last and final obstacle you'll face in the game is the special mobs in the game. One of the special mobs that I really find annoying in the game and a little bit glitchy that needs to be fixed is the Packmaster. The Packmaster is able to pull players from the party through various means, but they can also pull them through walls sometimes. In certain impossible places they can pull them through, like under the platforms, etc. So you have to be careful of them. You have to shoot them. It's hard to dodge them. I try to dodge in every way possible. The only way to do it is to kill them before they grab you. The other special units you'll see in the game is the armored rats, or known as the storm vermins. You'll see them sometimes patrolling as a group or in singles, where you have to kill them by hitting them on the head or use piercing weapons. But they hit really hard and they have armor on them, so they're really hard to kill also. The cool part though is that storm vermin patrols can be avoided altogether. The other special units are bombardiers. Bombardiers are the poison gas throwers. You'll see them throwing poison gas bombs, and if lowered to a certain amount of health, they'll charge at you and blow up on the party, hurting everyone. Another special rat you'll find that jumps on the party a lot is the assassins, or the gutter runners. These rats will jump on the party any chance they get and punish those who stray away. Now keep in mind, if you see them coming, you can actually dodge their attack if you time it correctly by dodging left or right. If you do so, you can actually avoid the attack and attack them, but by attacking them sometimes they will disappear and spawn in another area. So basically they're a punishment mechanic for those that like to be a badass in the game. Other special rat you'll see in the game is the Rattling Gunners, who's able to focus on one of the party members. What they have to do is get out of line of sight while the other team members try to kill them off by sniping them to the head or by killing them, because they do wear armor also. Finally, the final rat you'll see in the game is the Ogres, one of the toughest rats to fight. Depending on the situation, sometimes you might be unlucky. You'll have to fight that rat in the middle of all the other rats beating up on you, because they'll drag you down if they catch you. So the mechanic is that there's a CC mechanic from the rats. The rats will hold you back if they're on you. So basically your movement slows down if there's a rat beating up on you. The problem with this rat is that it's not too hard of a fight, but overall it depends on the situation. In order to fight these rats, you have to block their attacks or use other characters to kite them a bit to regenerate your block so you can keep hitting on them. But the best way to do it is to block, dodge a bit on his hits. You can actually dodge his hits when he does it, and also to keep doing as much damage as you can. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the game mechanic of the game. It's very important to know the game mechanic because the game doesn't really introduce a tutorial for you. It introduces tips and help from all these little flashes that you see during the loading screen, but in order to be a great player, you have to know the basics. So some of the 101s are as follow. To do an attack in the game, all you have to do is press an attack button. Now if you want to do a stronger attack, you do the charge attack button. Sometimes that is an armor piercing move, or it's able to push enemies or multiple enemies aside by holding down the attack button. Another important element that new people tend to forget in this game is that you have the ability to dodge. To dodge in the game, all you have to do is hold left, right, and back and press spacebar. This will enable you to take a quick step left, right, or back and avoid enemy hits. So if you time it right, you can actually avoid hits from enemy units such as ogres, and also special units if you know how to avoid them. The final mechanics in the game that players tend to forget while they're swinging their melee weapons is the block push. The way you do this is to block, you hold the block button; to push, you hold block and press the attack. Another thing I forgot to mention is that sometimes it's really hard to see members in the party in the game, so you want to turn on the player outline on at all times. To help the party members be aware of the situation is press the T button. This highlights items, this highlights enemies, and also highlights members in the party in a blue outline. By learning this, you'll be able to relieve some of the pressures from the enemies that are attacking your group. Now each of the 13 available maps in the game thus far offers 5 different difficulty levels. It's easy, normal, hard, nightmare, and cataclysm. Now Nightmare and Cataclysm is in another league itself, but Cataclysm is on a whole nother level. It's a really hard difficulty with many more mob spawns, and also enemies hit harder. So in order to do those difficulties, you need better weapons. Each of the weapons and gear in the game are done by rarities. The other thing to remember is that friendly fire is enabled on Nightmare and Cataclysm. Thank God it's not melee friendly fire, but we're talking about projectiles and bombs. So be careful where you hit with the bombs because that does the most damage. The projectiles, however, doesn't do as much damage, but it does hurt the team members. So as you whittle away and shoot at your enemies, the more you hit the teammates, the more health you'll whittle down on them. So be extra careful in these difficulties. Now, if you ever played a loot game before, the rarities falls into multiple colors: white, green, blue, orange being exotic, and purples, which are collector's items. And there's also the red, which you'll see as helmets. There are multiple ways to earn loot in this game. One of the ways is to level up. When you level up, you'll start earning white items, eventually moving on to green. The other way to earn the items is by completing the map with other players. The dice rolls themselves are done by a ratio. In order to earn better dices and better roll ratios, you have to complete special missions during the game, one of which requires you to carry tomes to the end of the levels. There are 3 tomes on some of the maps that you'll play throughout the game. The tomes themselves sacrifice a health kit slot, however you can drop them, pick up a health kit, use it, and then pick it right back up. But you can't carry a health kit once you have a tome on you. The other special items you'll find throughout some of the levels are Grimoires. Grimoires are items that will lower the group's health by 25%. They take up the potion slot and cannot be dropped, or if the character dies, you'll drop it. So in order to do it, you have to carry it all the way to the end of the level. If you throw it away, the health goes back up and you lose the chance of roll. The Grimoires rolls are 100%, so whenever you pick one of these up and finish the level with them, they're a guaranteed face-up roll. Now the downside to this is that the rolling in the game adheres to the RNG aspect of the game. Some people will love and hate this. The RNG aspect is the random number generator. Sometimes you will get a good dice roll, sometimes you won't, and even if you do, you'll earn an item that you won't use for the character you really like to play. But over time, you'll be able to earn these items eventually. Just need that really one good roll to kick in. The other way to earn loot is to fuse random items in game or the same items to move up to the next level. So for example, if you fuse 5 bows, you get the next colored bow. 5 whites become green, 5 green becomes blue, etc. You can also of course fuse 5 random items and get another random colored next level items out of it. For example, if you fuse 5 random item whites, you'll get a random green. That is all up to the RNG on what you get, so be careful at what you're gambling. The other thing you must know is that the items in the game have special traits to them. The traits are as follow: greens have 1 trait, the blues have 2, and the orange have 3. In order to enable the traits, you have to melt down the previous colored items. For example, to get orange item traits, you have to melt down blues. In order to get blue item traits, you have to melt down the green into gems and then use it to upgrade the items. Aside from the melee slots and also the ranged weapon slots in the game, there is also the trinket slots. There are 3 different trinket slots in the game that you could use to help boost your character or also boost what you do for the party. So that pretty much covers the gameplay mechanic of the game and also helps new players to set their boot into the game. Some of the other downsides I will definitely mention about this game is that there's no single player campaign with a story mode for it. Unfortunately, the game itself requires you to be online to play. The other downside I'll talk about is the bots in this game are really stupid. Hopefully they upgrade the bots with bot commands or something, because they can infuriate you at times during situations that you want them to do something, but they don't really do it and they go do their own things, or they home in on special rat units, which is quite annoying because you're progressing through the levels, they decide to go backwards. So in order to get the best experience from this game, you have to play with a group of players. And the bright side of this is that you can actually put decent gears on the bot. So whatever gear you earn, you can actually put on the bot and have the bot use it. And sometimes the bot will play better than the players themselves, unfortunately. But overall, better experiences to definitely play with people and friends. The last and final downside to this game for me is definitely the lack of custom dedicated servers. Unfortunately, there is no dedicated server in this game. The host hosts the game and you join the host. There's no way to look up your friends or people you've played with recently, so you have to have them on your friends list in order to join their game. But when the host disconnects from, I don't know, internet failure, or if the server crashes them, or they crash for any reasons, the game will reset the entire level for the group, so the next person becomes host and the level resets, which kind of sucks. So hopefully they do something about that. I've heard that the devs are planning to get dedicated servers. We don't know for sure yet, but hopefully if they add that in, it'll be sweet, because there's a lot of players coming to this game now. Finally, the last thing I'll talk about this game is that for $29.99, half of the price of a AAA title, this game is really fun. However, it does require some fixing and tweaking here and there, and especially optimization and Packmaster fixes. Aside from that, you know, the game itself has lots of promises from the devs coming out. We'll see other armies from the Warhammer universe possibly, and other heroes that will be added in the game. But overall, you either will love or hate this game. In fact, I have a love and hate relationship with the game, because the game itself to me is a gambling crap game disguised as a melee game. The reason I said this is because most of the time I play the game, I'm not playing it for the levels, I'm playing it for the fun with the players, but also at the end of the level, I'm looking at that dice roll and hoping for that good loot to come out. Every time I look at the dice, I cry because it's an RNG. I'm fighting RNGesus on the dice rolls. So hopefully, you know, you get better rolls than I do, because it took me 50 levels in order to get the roll I got. Another thing I want to give advice for the new players is that you don't definitely want to get the game and jump into Nightmare and Cataclysm mode right away, because you don't have the weapons for them, and a lot of the elite players or the veteran players don't have patience for new players. I, however, do, because I have patience in conditioning players. However, if I know that you don't have blue weapons or green weapons, you will pull the party down. You have to have a certain weapon to go into Nightmare and Cataclysm mode. So that's another downside to the game, is that they don't really adjust to the levels. People can be level 50 and a level 1 can join your game for no reason. No, you can't handle the difficulty, and you'll just drag the group down, because the reason you'll know is that you'll be the first one to die, unfortunately, and the trinkets really help the groups in the game. So you have to have trinkets and gear before you jump into those Nightmare and Cataclysm games. But even then, being quite honest with you, even if you join a Nightmare and Cataclysm game, your loot roll might be crap anyways. So it doesn't really matter if you jump into a Nightmare or Cataclysm game anyways, because you might not even get the loot. You'll get the table, but sometimes your loot will suck, and that's unfortunate for the game. Or you might even earn a different loot, not even for the class you want to play. So you have to be careful. It's all part of the RNG system. So if you hate RNG, you will hate this game. Trust me on this. It's infuriating when you see those rolls come out and you're like, oh man, I didn't get the loot. I didn't get the roll. Or sometimes you get a loot that you're like, what the heck? That's not what I'm using. I don't want that. So that's my review of Vermintide. It's a gambling game disguised as a melee game. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, guys. Remember to subscribe and share, and also rate up, and game on.